know where you buried her.
Her mouth stayed shut, blood shining on her lip like she had bitten down on something hard and kept it there. Boots circled. A woman said her name and then swallowed it. The girl stared ahead, eyes flat, as if the streak were not real and could not touch her. Drop her. The badge came into view, catching light. The sheriff did not raise his voice. He did not have to. The men holding her slowed, then tightened again, waiting. The badge rested heavy on his chest, proof enough. He leaned in, close to the girl's face, smiling small. "You hear me," he said. "You'll answer." She did not. She breathed through her nose. Blood slid down and touched her chin. A boy in the crowd turned away. The sheriff's smile held. A wagon creaked somewhere. A dog barked and went quiet. Nobody stepped forward. The space between bodies felt owned, measured, priced. The girl stood inside it like she had learned how to stand in worse. "Let go," the cowboy said. He was already there, between them, hat low, hands empty. He did not shout. He did not reach. He stood like a post sunk deep and refused to move. The men looked at him, then at the badge, then back. "You don't want this," one said. "Step aside." The cowboy shook his head once. "No." The sheriff laughed, quick and clean. "You found yourself a cause," he said. "She's trouble." The cowboy did not look at the girl. "She didn't steal," he said. "You know it." The sheriff's eyes flicked. "You know a lot now?" The cowboy said, "Enough." A hand shoved him. He did not fall. The crowd leaned forward and then back, like one body unsure which way to breathe. The girl's fingers twitched, then went still. "Ask her," the sheriff said, pleasant. "She'll tell you." The cowboy said nothing. The girl lifted her chin. She spoke once, quiet and clean, the words cutting straight. "I didn't beg when they burned my house," she said. Silence snapped tight. The sheriff's smile slid off his face. A murmur rippled and died. Someone cursed under breath. The men loosened their grip without meaning to. The cowboy felt the air change, cold and thin. He stepped closer, shoulder to shoulder with the girl, still not touching her. "Let her go," he said again. Dust settled on boots and hems as the crowd pretended relief, every eye learning his shape, her stillness, and the rule that refusal could walk and breathe here today. The sheriff looked at the badge, then at the crowd, counting faces. He raised a hand and the men released her. She swayed and caught herself. The sheriff nodded, slow, as if granting mercy he owned. "This isn't over," he said. He stepped closer to the cowboy, voice low now, meant only for him. He tasted the name, drew it out like a threat. "Caleb," he said. The sheriff stepped back first. Not far. Just enough to show he chose it. "Go on," he said, waving them off like flies. "We'll talk later." The crowd broke in pieces, voices cutting short. "Shouldn't have. Saw it coming. Not her place." The girl stood where they left her, breathing even. The cowboy turned. "You steady?" She wiped her mouth with her sleeve. "I didn't ask." He nodded. "I know." They walked. No rush. The sheriff watched them go, hands loose, eyes sharp. Someone spat in the dirt. A woman pulled her child closer. The street emptied without anyone admitting it. Silence settled and pressed harder than the shouting had. The girl kept her gaze forward. The cowboy said, "You can ride." She shook her head. "I'll walk." He did not argue. Boots and hooves sounded too loud. At the edge of town, he held out a canteen. "Water." She took it, held it, did not drink. "Later," she said. He said, "Any place you won't go?" She said, "Anywhere's fine." He mounted, slow, staying beside her pace. Eyes followed from porches and doorways. Nobody waved. Nobody spoke. The quiet felt owned. They reached his land as the sun dipped low. A small house sat back from the road, boards dark, windows closed. The fence leaned. Beyond it, the ground fell away to a round shape covered by planks and a rusted sheet. The girl stopped. "What's that?" "A well," he said. "Haven't used it." She stared, face tight. He said, "Water's good closer in." She nodded once and looked away. He set the canteen on the porch rail. "Drink now," he said. She lifted it, took a swallow, then froze. She coughed, bent, spit hit the dirt. Her hands shook. "No," she said. "It's wrong." He took the canteen, smelled it. "It's fine." She shook her head harder. "It tastes like ash." He did not push. He set it down. "We'll draw fresh." They stood without speaking. Crickets started. Far off, a door slammed in town. The girl wiped her mouth again. "They'll come," she said. He said, "I know." She looked at the well, then back at him. "You don't," she said. He met her eyes. "I know enough." She sat on the step, arms wrapped tight. He stayed standing, giving space. The silence did not ease. It watched them. She reached for the canteen again, took another small drink, swallowed, then shook, spitting once more. "I can't," she said, voice thin. He nodded. "Then don't." She breathed through it, eyes wet but steady. The well stayed covered, waiting. The fire crackled immediately as they settled into the clearing behind the cabin. The girl sat across from the cowboy, knees pulled up, arms resting on them. Sparks jumped and died. "They call you Trouble," she said, voice low but sharp. He did not look at her. "They call me Worse," he said. She laughed once, short, bitter. "Worse," she repeated. "I like that better." The flames flickered across her face. She looked too small and too steady at the same time. "Why worse?" she asked, tilting her head. "Because I stayed when I should have gone," he said. "Because I saw things and did nothing." She nodded like she understood, though she did not ask for details. A branch snapped. She flinched. The fire popped too loud. "Relax," he said. "It's just dry wood." She did not relax. "Not wood," she said. "People." They sat silent a beat. Then she said, "House burned. Mother gone. No grave. No marker. No one to say goodbye." Her words hung. The smoke caught her hair. "I know what that feels like," he said, quiet. She looked at him. "Did you?" He shrugged. "I left. Came back broken." She studied him as if measuring the cracks, tracing them with her eyes. "I could see them," she said. "The ones left behind. Watching." He did not answer. The night wind stirred leaves and carried faint voices from town, whispers he had learned to ignore. "Gunshots?" she asked. He nodded once, slow. "Distant. Don't mean us yet." "Yet," she repeated. Her hands pressed to her knees. She flinched again. "They never stop." He tossed a small stick into the fire. "Doesn't mean we wait." The fire popped. Sparks hit her sleeve. She brushed them off without a word. The cowboy watched her do it. She was careful, like every movement mattered. Like survival was in the smallest gestures. She asked, "Do you remember names?" He said, "Sometimes." She shook her head. "Doesn't help. Only makes the air heavier." He said nothing. "I am supposed to be afraid," she said. "Supposed to crawl. Supposed to beg." Her jaw tightened. "I don't." He nodded. "Good," he said. "That counts for something." Silence fell again, filled with the distant hum of insects and the lingering smoke of the fire. The shadows bent closer. A sudden pop echoed from the woods, sharper than the fire's crackle. Both flinched. "They're near," she whispered. He shook his head. "Far. Just far." "Still enough," she said. She pressed her palms to the dirt, eyes wide, scanning the tree line. "Enough to remember." The fire shifted, casting their faces in half-darkness. Her hair fell into her eyes. She pushed it back and said, "I don't trust night anymore." "Not since then." He nodded, listening. The fire popped again. "Then we'll keep moving," he said. "As long as we can." She looked at him, blinked once, and said, "I like moving. Makes the silence less loud." Sparks spiraled up into the black sky. From town came the faint echo of another distant shot. Her eyes flicked toward it. She clenched her fists, then let them rest. "They always come back," she whispered. "Yes," he said. "But not tonight." And for the first time since he had found her, she leaned back and let the fire's warmth touch her skin without flinching. The sheriff appeared before the fire without warning, stepping through the edge of the clearing, hands relaxed at his sides, a thin smile on his face. "Evening," he said. "I hope I'm not interrupting." His voice was calm, polite, but sharp enough to make the girl flinch. The cowboy stood, hat low, shoulders squared. "You are," he said. "Go back." The sheriff didn't move. "I came for a chat," he said, glancing at the girl. "About her." "About you." "About what you think you're hiding." The girl's fingers curled around the edge of the log she sat on. "I'm not hiding," she said. The sheriff's eyes flicked to her, and for the first time, he seemed almost pleased. "Hiding or not," he said, voice smooth, "people remember things. Bad things. Names. Faces. Stories. They remember you too," the cowboy said, stepping forward slightly. "We're not giving her over," he added. The sheriff tilted his head, still smiling. "Oh, I think you'll reconsider." "I always think people reconsider when the law calls." "You think I'll care?" the cowboy asked. "You will," the sheriff said softly. "Or maybe you already do." His hand rested lightly on the badge at his chest. He didn't push, didn't draw, but the weight of it felt like it could crush the space between them. The girl's eyes flicked to the badge. She whispered low, almost to herself, "Fire remembers." The sheriff's smile sharpened, just a fraction. "And so do I," he said, voice flat, quiet enough to make the air tight. The cowboy didn't flinch. "You'll have to do more than talk," he said. "Do you understand me?" The sheriff's hand stayed there on the metal, shiny and cold. "Oh, I understand," he said. "I understand more than you think. That girl, that little troublemaker. Well, she carries her own kind of story." The girl's jaw tightened. "I don't need a story carried for me," she said. "I can manage my own." The sheriff let the words hang, then turned slightly, looking past them toward the dark woods, voice lighter. "You know, it's funny. People forget how far shadows reach. They forget the things that linger in the corners." The cowboy didn't respond. He just stood there, body quiet but ready. The fire threw sparks across their faces, painting them jagged and restless. "You'll come back," he said finally, steady. The sheriff's smile never faltered. "Of course. With paper next time," he said. "I don't need a gun to make a point." He straightened, tipped his head once, and walked back toward the tree line, leaving the space taut, full of waiting. The girl looked at the cowboy. "Do they always come back with paper?" she asked quietly. "Not always," he said. "Sometimes they come back with worse." She swallowed, keeping her eyes on the darkened trees. The wind stirred, rattling the dry branches overhead. "We'll be ready," he said. She nodded, the ghost of a small smile flickering and fading. Sparks drifted from the fire, scattered like warning lights across the clearing. The sheriff's shape disappeared, swallowed by the night, leaving the girl and the cowboy alone with the fire and the quiet that followed, sharp and unyielding, like a promise. The cowboy pried the rusted sheet off the well slowly, muscles tight and careful. The wood underneath groaned. The girl stepped back, hands pressed to her chest. "Don't," she said, voice sharp. "It's fine," he said, ignoring her warning. "We'll need water." She didn't move closer. Her eyes stayed fixed on the dark hole. The air smelled of wet earth and rot. "It's wrong," she said, almost a whisper, but the words cut the silence. He leaned over, peering into the black mouth of the well. "It's just water," he said. "You'll be fine." She shook her head. "They pushed," she said, and her voice trembled despite her stillness. "Who pushed?" he asked. She did not answer. "They said hush," she said, voice tighter, faster. "I shouldn't have listened. I should have run. I didn't." Her hands shook at her sides. He stepped closer but stayed silent, letting her speak the fragments she needed to. "Did they die?" he asked carefully. "I don't know," she said. "No one told me." Her eyes drifted down the well, as if looking for shadows. The cowboy crouched beside her. "You're here now," he said. "Safe enough." She pressed her palms to the edge of the well, gripping it as if it anchored her. Her fingers dug into the wood. "They're still here," she said. "Even when I can't see them." He nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her memory settle between them. The dark water at the bottom mirrored nothing, swallowed light, and reflected the fear she carried. "Step back," she said. "Not yet," he said. "We'll get water for the night." She shook her head again. "I don't want it," she said. Her voice was low, brittle. He didn't argue. He pushed the lid fully open, and it rested against the side of the well. The scent of damp earth rose. "See," he said. "Nothing's coming up to get us." She pressed her palms flat against the edge, breathing hard. "I know," she said. "But they're still here. Always here." She let herself touch the old wood for a moment longer, feeling its grain and its rough edges. "This well remembers," she whispered. "The things it saw, the things they did. It keeps them inside." He stayed beside her, silent, letting the words hang between them. The air felt thick, almost alive. She finally straightened, looking down into the blackness once more. "I can't forget," she said. "Even water reminds me." He nodded. "You don't have to," he said. "Just let it not break you tonight." She pressed her forehead against the edge, letting her hair spill forward, shielding her face from the world. The wind rattled dry branches above. Her hand slid slightly on the wood, as if grounding herself. "They're still here," she repeated, quieter this time, almost to herself. The well gaped at her, empty and patient, holding memory and darkness alike, waiting for what would come next. She stepped back finally, hands leaving the grain, and the cowboy closed the lid slowly, letting the night settle over them both, heavy and watching. The sheriff's voice carried across the dusty meeting hall, clipped and measured, sharp as a whip. "The land belongs to those who remember their place," he said, and the old men nodded, murmuring assent. "Bloodlines matter. Always have, always will." One of them leaned forward. "She doesn't belong. Not here. Not anywhere near it." Another said, "Let him handle it." The cowboy. "He's quiet, but he listens." Their words rattled in the air like stones in a jar. The cowboy stood outside, half hidden in the shadow of the trees, listening. He caught names, patterns, hints of the past woven into their discussion. The girl's name came up more than once, spoken like property, like a claim. The conversation ended abruptly. A chair scraped. "Go speak with him," the sheriff said, voice lower, directed at no one in particular. The old men shuffled out, muttering. The cowboy didn't move. He waited. The girl came from the woods behind him, silent. "I hear them," she said. "You do," he said, eyes scanning the horizon. "Names. Places. Things that shouldn't exist anymore." She nodded, stepping closer. "They want me gone," she said. "They want what I am buried." They moved toward the edge of the town road. Shadows from buildings stretched long and broken. The sheriff appeared first, standing where he wanted to, smiling thin. "I hear you've been listening," he said. "Careful now. You might learn more than you can handle." The cowboy said nothing. He just let the girl step forward into the open. She did not falter. "She's not yours to move," the cowboy said finally. The sheriff's hand hovered near his belt, brushing the badge. "Oh, I know," he said. "But things change." "You're bluffing," the cowboy said. "Not tonight," the sheriff replied. "Not yet." He smiled, polite, sharp. The girl's eyes stayed fixed on the badge, on the hand that never moved away, on the control it implied. "You're finished," she said, voice quiet, cutting. "Not yet," the sheriff repeated. His lips pressed together. "Soon," he said. The wind stirred dust around their boots. Silence carried the weight of expectation. The girl took a breath and stepped fully into the open, standing tall between the cowboy and the sheriff. Her presence alone shifted the space. The sheriff's smile faltered, just slightly. "Bold," he said, more to himself than anyone else. The cowboy kept his hand on the girl's shoulder, not holding her, just near enough to steady. She did not lean. She did not flinch. She simply watched the sheriff, measuring the line he had drawn and the space he had already lost. The sheriff straightened, adjusting his hat, voice smooth again. "I'll be back," he said. "With paper." The words hung in the air, empty of immediate threat but full of promise. The girl's chest rose and fell steadily. "We'll see," she said. He tipped his head once and stepped back, disappearing toward the cluster of trees where the town waited. The cowboy and the girl stayed where they were, the air heavy with possibility, tension, and the quiet understanding that stepping forward had changed everything. She looked at him. "I didn't move," she said. "You did." He shook his head, a small, grim smile breaking through. "We both did." The girl stepped onto the dusty main street alone, boots kicking up dry earth. The town was quiet, not from peace but from waiting. Whispers threaded through the open windows and empty doorways. "There she is. Does she know what she's doing? The sheriff's gone, but he'll hear soon enough." She walked without glance, shoulders back, eyes forward. The weight of every stair pressed on her, but she did not falter. Every footfall echoed, small and determined against the emptiness. A man stepped out from behind a store, hands on hips. "You're out too late." She didn't stop. "I'm not lost," she said. A woman on a porch spat into the dirt. "Shouldn't be here." "Shouldn't be where?" she asked. No answer came, just silence and the scrape of old boards. Another voice muttered, "They'll teach her." "Won't take long." She did not flinch. She kept walking, small clouds of dust rising around her boots, the sun low, painting the town in burnt orange and long shadows. The sheriff appeared from the corner, slow and deliberate. "You shouldn't be walking here," he said, voice steady but carrying weight. "Not without me." She stopped for the first time and turned fully, eyes sharp. "I don't need you," she said. "You've claimed too much already." The sheriff's hand drifted toward his badge. "Claims are easy. Control is hard." She smiled, thin and pointed. "Try me," she said. The words were calm, cold, precise. Around them, the townspeople leaned, whispered, held their breath. From the edge of the street, the cowboy arrived, dismounting without hurry, hat low, shadow stretching long. He watched the scene, noticing the subtle shift in the crowd. The sheriff's presence was no longer absolute. People turned slightly, heads dipping, measuring who would move first. The girl met the cowboy's eyes and nodded once. She did not need protection. She needed witness. "I see you're well," she said, voice low, addressing the sheriff. "The one you'd burn, the one you'd hide. It remembers everything." The sheriff's smile twitched, but he didn't move. "Words won't change what's mine," he said. "Not yours to speak." She stepped forward a half step, chest lifted. Not yours to hold. Not anymore. The cowboy's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, steadying, present but not controlling. The crowd shifted again, the murmurs louder, questioning, uncertain. She walked past the sheriff, slow, deliberate, and toward the center of the street. Dust swirled at her feet. Night falls on your power, she said softly, to herself and to the town, voice carrying like wind over the open dirt. She paused. One woman in the crowd lowered her eyes, the gesture subtle but significant. Another followed, a child shifted behind a doorframe. The sheriff exhaled slowly, aware he had lost the first layer of control. The cowboy stepped closer, not in front, beside her. They both faced the empty, watchful town, knowing the night had begun to bend toward them. The girl reached into her coat and pulled out the stack of letters, edges frayed and ink faded. She held them out like evidence, letting the wind flick at the corners. The cowboy stood behind her, silent, watching. The sheriff stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "Where did you get those?" he asked, voice smooth but low, dangerous. "From where they shouldn't have been," she said. "Your office. Your desk. Your files." His lips pressed together. He looked at the letters, then at her, then at the cowboy. "You'll pay for this," he said, calm, and yet sharp enough to cut. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe not." She flipped one open. Names appeared, repeated, connections drawn across ink-stained paper. "These were my mother's," she said, quiet, letting the words fall between them. Every name she touched. Every promise broken. Every hidden debt. The sheriff's hand twitched near the badge at his chest. "Those are just letters," he said. "Paper. Nothing more." She met his eyes. "Nothing more," she repeated. "Or nothing less?" The cowboy shifted slightly, hand near the girl but not on her. "Your silence helped them once," he said, voice low. "You knew and you chose nothing." The sheriff's smile thinned. "I know what I did," he said. "And I'd do it again." She lifted a letter higher, letting the wind catch it. "Then your reckoning waits," she said. Sparks of tension crackled in the space between them, electric and sudden. Her fingers brushed the edges of the letters, ready to throw, to destroy, to reveal. He laughed softly. "You're bold." The cowboy's jaw tightened. The girl met him, eyes fierce. "We're done talking," she said. She tossed a letter into the fire crackling at the edge of the clearing. Flames caught, consuming ink and paper, curling edges black. "Stop," the sheriff barked. The cowboy stepped forward, body blocking her but careful. "Let it burn," he said. The fire roared, feeding on the letters. The smoke rose, thick and black, curling into the night. One by one, she fed the letters to the flames, letting the fire take half, leaving fragments behind. "Enough," she said. Her chest heaved, eyes fixed on the blaze. The sheriff's hand dropped from the badge, almost reluctantly. "This isn't over," he said. She looked at him, voice calm, cutting. "It is, for tonight." Sparks swirled, smoke curling like fingers across their faces. She turned to the cowboy. "Do you see now?" she asked. He nodded once, voice quiet. "I do." The sheriff stumbled back, wounded in pride if not body, watching fire consume proof, evidence, and memory alike. The girl crouched beside the remnants, embers glowing, and breathed. The cowboy stayed near, watching her hands tremble slightly from heat and tension. Around them, the night held its breath. The sheriff didn't move, didn't speak. The fire died slowly, taking letters and fear alike. Only fragments remained, and the sheriff's gaze, sharp but defeated, lingered there before retreating into shadow. The girl looked at the ashes. She whispered, "This is what truth costs," and for the first time, she allowed herself a small exhale of relief. Night pressed in around the clearing, thick and heavy, but it did not feel empty. Women gathered near the well, their faces pale in the flickering firelight, voices low, passing words like confessions. "I saw it too," one whispered. "I know what happened," said another. The girl listened, not interrupting, letting their voices thread through the dark like a river. She stayed close to the cowboy, whose hand rested lightly on her back, steady, grounding. Shadows leapt across their faces as the fire's glow shifted. The sheriff appeared at the edge of town, stepping from the dark, but he paused when he saw them. His mouth opened, closed. Words didn't come at first. He tried again. "You'll regret this," he said. His tone carried the weight of authority, but the crowd no longer wavered. Murmurs of dissent rippled through the women near the well. Their presence alone pushed back against him. The cowboy shifted, hand hovering near his belt but not drawing. He let the girl face the sheriff. She did not speak, just watched him, and that was enough to fracture his certainty. His eyes flicked from her to the assembled women, realizing he had lost more than ground, he had lost the pattern of fear. One of the women stepped closer to the well, chest lifted. Another followed. They did not speak, but their stance carried meaning, they would not step back. The sheriff's jaw tightened, the line of his shoulders stiffened, and he took a step back, slowly, tasting the defeat of reputation. The girl knelt beside the well, hands brushing over the planks, feeling the rough wood, the weight of what had been and what lingered. She looked up at the cowboy. "You okay?" she asked quietly. He nodded, wincing slightly from a scrape on his side. She pressed her palm against his arm. "Let me see." He flexed, letting her check the injury, but he made no sound. The night hummed around them, insects and distant calls from the woods threading through the tension, binding them to the land and each other. Distant, muffled voices carried from the town, but they were no longer threats. They were fragments, half-heard echoes. The sheriff retreated further, keeping his distance, authority eroding. The women moved subtly, forming a ring near the well, protective and watchful. The girl stayed kneeling, eyes lowered, listening more than speaking. Her hands traced the grain of the wood, grounding herself, naming the ghosts she could not see. The cowboy rested against a post, silent, watching her, aware that the night had shifted in ways neither of them could undo. The fire burned lower, embers glowing, sparks floating into the black sky. Dawn began its faint work on the horizon, softening the edges of trees and buildings, promising a new shape to the day. The sheriff's figure shrank behind the darkened town, impotent and distant. The girl straightened finally, brushing dirt from her sleeves. She looked at the cowboy and whispered, "It's almost morning." He nodded. "We made it this far," he said. Together, they faced the coming light, the well at their side, the night behind them, ready for whatever would come next. The town gathered slowly, drawn by murmurs and movement, a crowd forming near the center street where the dust hung in thin waves. The sheriff stepped forward, hat low, voice clear. "You're under arrest," he said. "Step aside." The girl stood at the edge of the group, shoulders straight, chest lifted. She did not flinch, did not speak at first. Sparks of tension cut through the quiet, a low hum of expectation. Around them, the townspeople shifted, unsure which way to look or whom to follow. She stepped forward, slow, deliberate. Eyes scanning the crowd, the cowboy beside her but slightly behind, hands loose at his sides. "Enough," she said, voice carrying like wind over open dirt. The sheriff's hand moved toward his belt, a warning, but the girl ignored it. She knelt at the well, fingers brushing over the rough planks. "This is where power ends," she said softly. She pushed the cover fully aside, revealing the dark mouth of the well. Her movements were careful, precise, not hasty. She lowered the bucket herself, letting it scrape and echo against the stones. Water rose in the bucket, dark and reflective. She lifted it, drank first, slow, steady, letting the liquid touch her lips and throat. The cowboy watched, silent, as the townspeople leaned in, some shifting uneasily, some staring. When she offered the bucket to the first woman in the crowd, the gesture quiet but deliberate, the woman hesitated, then drank. Another followed. The circle widened, small acts of trust threading through the dust and firelight. The sheriff watched from a step back, teeth clenched, voice tight. "Do you think that changes anything?" he asked. She did not answer him. She handed the bucket along, letting the women decide for themselves, letting choice ripple outward. The cowboy stayed beside her, not leading, not commanding, letting her presence carry the weight of authority. The air shifted, heavy tension releasing in small increments. Each swallow of water became a silent statement, a refusal to yield, a claim to something beyond fear. The last bucket returned to her hands. She set it down gently, wiped her mouth, and straightened. The townspeople stepped back, quiet, eyes lowered, faces softened. The sheriff's gaze swept over them all, sharp and frustrated, but his words had no purchase. The girl took a deep breath, standing fully in the center of the street, letting the night's quiet and the fire's glow define the space she had claimed. Around them, the well gaped open, a symbol of choice, courage, and endurance. Silence followed, long and unbroken, heavier than any words. The sheriff's presence remained, but diminished, insignificant. The cowboy exhaled softly, hand brushing hers for a moment, grounding but not restraining. She looked at him, eyes steady, and said nothing. The gesture had spoken. The crowd had witnessed. The night carried its weight differently now. The well, the water, the act of offering, these had shifted everything. And for the first time, the girl felt the weight of hope settle into her chest, solid and enduring. The sheriff stepped forward, trying again, voice sharp and deliberate. "You think this changes anything?" he said. The crowd did not answer. The women near the well held their ground, shoulders squared, eyes steady. The sheriff's words fell flat, bouncing off the dust and the quiet air. The cowboy stepped closer to the girl, not in front, just beside her. "It already has," he said. She nodded once, eyes fixed on the fading shadows of the fire. He opened his mouth to speak again. "You'll pay for this." "No," the girl said, voice cutting, firm. "Not here. Not tonight." The sheriff's hand brushed the badge at his chest, hesitant now. He tried to raise his voice, to reclaim authority, but dialogue after dialogue from the women interrupted him. "Step back. Enough. This isn't yours." Every voice chipped away at his control. He faltered, glancing at the cowboy, the girl, the silent faces of those who would no longer yield. The old men, who had gathered at the edges, shifted uneasily. One whispered, "We should leave." Another muttered agreement. They did not want the confrontation, not against this, against the quiet resolve that had taken the street. They filed out slowly, murmuring, disappearing into the shadows. The sheriff looked around, realizing he had no allies left in the space he had once dominated. His hand fell from the badge, letting it rest meaningless against his chest. The girl stepped toward the well. Her hands brushed the edges, rough and familiar. The cowboy remained beside her, quiet, allowing her the space she had earned. The townspeople gathered closer, forming a protective ring, watching, listening. The sheriff's presence was still there, but diminished, hollow. He tried to speak again, words failing him. His mouth opened, closed, and finally, with a bitter tilt of the head, he removed the badge entirely, dropping it into the dust. It lay there, abandoned, a symbol of authority emptied of its power. The girl crouched by the well, hands in the rough wood. The cowboy leaned slightly against the post, keeping watch, alert but calm. She looked around at the faces, not with triumph, not with vengeance, but with quiet acknowledgement. The air felt different, reshaped by her choice and the courage she had inspired. Silence settled over them, not oppressive, but weighted with understanding. The well, now uncovered, became a center, a gathering point, a place that belonged to everyone and no one at once. The sheriff stepped back, fading into the edges of the town, defeated without spectacle. The girl straightened fully, dust on her sleeves, eyes calm and steady. The cowboy exhaled softly beside her. No one spoke. The air held the balance of power shifted, old orders dissolved, and something new taking root. The well, the gesture, and the quiet resolve became the anchor. Together, girl and cowboy stood, not as rulers, not as protectors, but as witnesses to what remained, the space reclaimed, the authority broken, and the possibility of something different waiting to grow. The first light of morning stretched over the town, soft and gray, brushing the edges of rooftops and fence posts with quiet gold. The girl knelt beside the well one last time, hands resting on the rough wood, fingers tracing the grain as if reading memory itself. She breathed slowly, deeply, letting the air carry away the weight of night, the tension, the echoes of threats that had lingered too long. The cowboy stood behind her, hat low, shadow stretching, silent and steady. "Will you stay?" he asked quietly, voice careful, almost fragile against the quiet dawn. She looked up, eyes clear and unwavering. "I already am," she said. He nodded, letting her words settle, solid and unyielding. Around them, the town had not yet stirred fully, but the streets were quieter, softer, as if holding its breath in respect. The well stood open, uncovered, dark water glimmering in the pale light, an anchor in the center of their reclaimed space. The girl pressed her palms to the edge of the well, steadying herself, grounding herself, and whispered to it softly, "Thank you for holding what they could not take. Thank you for remembering." She lifted her gaze to the cowboy. "It's ours now, if we choose it." He exhaled slowly. "It already is," he said. Around them, small movements began, a woman stepping out to the porch, a child peeking from a doorway, faces tentative but curious, watching. She stood fully, brushing dust from her sleeves, the gesture simple, deliberate. The cowboy came closer, not leading, just beside her, a quiet presence, neither shadow nor shield. The sun rose further, light spilling over the street and buildings, revealing the dust, the scattered embers from fires long out, and the badge the sheriff had dropped, half buried in the dirt. She bent, nudged it with her boot, and left it there, untouched, a relic of authority that had lost its meaning. For a moment, the town seemed to hold still, listening, waiting. Then one woman approached the well, cautious but unafraid. She cupped water in her hands, drank, and offered a nod. Another followed, and another, small acts of trust threading through the quiet, weaving a new rhythm into the day. The girl stepped back, letting them claim the space, letting choice and courage flow outward from her and the cowboy, who watched, patient, unshaken. The air held the scent of dirt and wood smoke, lingering in memory like a promise. The girl looked once more at the well, dark and open, then at the town waking slowly around her. She and the cowboy stood side by side, not rulers, not guardians, but witnesses to what had been reclaimed, a place, a choice, a possibility. She breathed deeply, steady, and whispered to no one in particular, "We're still here. We remain." The sun climbed, the shadows fell behind them, and the world felt new, measured not by fear but by endurance, witness, and hope.